Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started so we don't fall too far behind. My name is Michael Delicarpini. I'm the Dean of the Annenberg School for Communication here at the University of Pennsylvania, and my job is a very simple and pleasant one, just to welcome you and introduce our fearless leader of Media at Risk. I did want to say a couple of words, though, and also read a letter from President Amy Gutman of the University of Pennsylvania. So about 15 years ago, I think, I was at a conference at University of Wisconsin being sponsored by Free Press, the activist organization that many of you probably know. And the keynote speaker was Seymour Hersh, who you all probably know as well as an investigative reporter who broke the My Lai massacre scandal, among many other things. And this was a little while after the 2001 9/11 terrorist attacks, but far enough away from that moment where the implications for privacy, a free press, democracy were being thought in a more subtle kind of way. And I remember specifically Hersh saying that one of the things he had learned throughout his career, but especially at that moment, was the fragility of democratic institutions. And it was a really interesting point that he was making, that as much as we think our institutions are set and are protected from threats, we should always be vigilant on those kind of issues. I mention that because we are at a moment right now where it seems natural and obvious to have a center that focuses on media at risk, but it's always important to remember, as we were reminded yesterday by Soraya, that the media in many ways is always at risk. The particular moments that are really fraught may change, but it's always at risk, and we need to be vigilant. And also that it is the media that we are focusing on, not just journalism, though journalism is clearly important, but democratic politics also means democratic culture, and so it's more expansive, which I think is a great element of this new center. And these things are tied together because in the end, it's not the media itself that we're concerned about, but the public that we're concerned about, or segments of the public that are regularly ignored, as we heard again yesterday at the lecture. And the institutions of democracy that Hersh said were so fragile do in fact include the media in all its various forms. So I'm very excited about the fact that we now have a center here and a leader of that center who can address these issues from a kind of perspective that is broad enough but has enough of a historical sense to it that ideally we'll be able to learn some things that have some practical application in trying to preserve the role that media plays in a democratic society and in democratic societies across the globe. So having said that, let me read a letter from President Gutman, who wishes she could be here, but she's president of the university. She's got a lot of other things that she needs to do. Dear conference attendees, welcome to Penn. As a political philosopher who has written extensively about issues fundamentally important to preserving and strengthening our democracy, I can think of few more timely or necessary matters than what you have come here to consider. I congratulate you, I welcome you, and I thank you on behalf of concerned citizens everywhere around the world. There is a story we all know here in Philadelphia that is worth repeating to our visitors for this conference. Penn's founder, Benjamin Franklin, was the oldest and among the most honored members of the Constitutional Convention that met in Independence Hall more than 230 years ago. Near the end of their labors, he emerged one day and was accosted by a woman on the street wondering just what type of government America was to have. To which Franklin replied, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it." The lessons hold no less today. Our freedom and our self-government depend upon the constant informed attention and understanding of its citizenry. To that end, a free and unfettered press is absolutely essential. You are here to do good work, the good work of helping us better understand how political intimidation in the media is developing and what can be done to stop and overcome it. What does political intimidation look like? How can it be resisted? These are timely and vitally important questions today. This conference is a wonderfully auspicious beginning for the Annenberg School for Communications' new Center for Media at Risk. I congratulate the center's director, Barbie Zelizer, at the start of this great and important undertaking. May your conference be informative, insightful, and as Ben Franklin foretold, help us to keep those freedoms we cherish now and for generations to come. Amy Gutman. Now I will do a brief introduction of Barbie. Most of you know Barbie very well. She is the Raymond Williams Professor of Communication and Director of the Center for Media at Risk at Penn and at the Annenberg School for Communication. A former journalist, Barbie is an expert on journalism, culture, memory, and images in times of crisis. Author of 14 books and over 100 articles and essays. She is a Peabody Media Fellow and has received fellowships from the Guggenheim Foundation, the Freedom Forum Center, Harvard University, Fulbright Senior Scholars, Stanford Center for the Advanced Study of Behavioral Sciences, and the Helsinki Collegium for Advanced Studies. She is currently working on a project titled How the Cold War Drives the News, for which she has received an ACLS Fellowship for 2018-2019. Barbie directed the Scholars Program in Culture and Communication for 14 years, which will now transition into the Center for Media at Risk. Please join me in welcoming Barbie Zelizer.
Good morning. Media at risk is perhaps the clearest indicator of how bad things can go when democracies start to slide. Yet in multiple places around the globe, the political intimidation of media practitioners has become the rule, not the exception. Today and tomorrow, we hope to begin strategizing what that looks like, what it means, how to resist it. Scholars of authoritarianism tell us that it penetrates by finding the weakest link in an environment. As scholars and practitioners, as folks on digital platforms, documentary, journalism, and entertainment, as citizens of the Philippines, Azerbaijan, or the US, we might remember what Soraya Chemaly expertly established last night, that the question of who defines risk shapes which risks we attend to. And with that in mind, we can begin to register the mechanisms by which political intimidation starts its creep, and to identify what has been done and what can be done to resist it. A couple of tasks first. There's lots of gratitude coming from the podium right now. First, all of you for setting aside busy schedules to be here. Our sponsors, Penn Global, the Office of the Vice Provost for Research, Perry Worldhouse, Craig Newmark Philanthropies, and the Annenberg School for Communication, each of whom rose immediately to the query for support. A special shout out to Michael Deli Carpini, without whom this center simply would not be. To the Annenberg staff in the main office, the building, security, maintenance, IT, they have created extra days in the week for this event. To the exemplary Emily Plowman, who keeps forsaking everything in her life to keep us on target. I hope that her kids will not hate me when they understand. And to our unbelievable doctoral student organizing committee, I'm going to embarrass them. I'm going to ask them, please, to stand. Megan Genovese, Jen Hendrickson, Mira McCammon, Hannah Morris, and Aaron Shapiro. What can I say? You are all here. You are all here because of their diligence, because of their relentless research, and because of their passion for taking this thing called risk and blowing it out of the water. And I hope that we follow in their lead. I also want to thank David Conrad and Noor Chalabi, who may be tapping you and whisking you away for an interview at some point during the proceedings. This conference structure may be a bit different than others you've attended. Everyone has something to say, and we want to accommodate as many people as we can. That's partly why we have presenters who will formally present up to 10 minutes each, and interlocutors, which I've been told I took that word from, I don't know, ancient English. Does anybody not know the word interlocutor? Interlocutors who have been strategically planted in the audience to comment immediately on the remarks they hear. For everyone in the audience, I'd ask that you briefly identify yourselves, speak up loudly. We have recording in the ceilings, both for those of us here in the room. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that really came off badly, didn't it? I'd ask you identify yourselves, not only for those here in the room, but also for the live stream. We also have 4 moderators, all from among the center's Penn affiliates. In order, I'm going to introduce them. Bethany Wigan, moderating the digital panel, an associate professor of German who studies migration, language, and cultural translation. She is the founding director of the Penn Program in Environmental Humanities and co-leader of the Data Refuge Project. James English, where's Jim? Entertainment. The John Welsh Centennial Professor of English, who studies sociology and economics of culture. He directs the Wolf Humanities Center and is founding director of the Price Lab for Digital Humanities. John Jackson, I know is here. I saw him. Maybe he's not. Okay, well, he will be back. John Jackson is heading up documentary. He is the Richard Perry Dean of the School of Social Policy and Social Practice, who is an ethnographer of media practice and a director, producer of numerous nonfiction films. He is also head of CAMERA, Penn's Collective for Advancing Multimedia Research Arts. And finally, Michael Deli-Carpini, who is moderating journalism, the Walter H. Annenberg Dean of the Annenberg School, without whom, as I said, the center would not be here. He studies citizenship, American politics, and media. The investment, as I hope I'm conveying, is wide and across the board, which I think gives us a running start in thinking together about what media risk means. So as I turn this over to Bethany and the first panel, I want to leave us with something Hannah Arendt once said. Whenever the relevance of speech is at stake, matters become political by definition. So let's get going. We have a lot of work to do. Thanks.